How are you, sir?
Sean, I'm doing terrific. How are you doing today?
You know, I'm good, thank you. This takes me back to 2013. This takes me back to every Republican saying they'll repeal and replace Obamacare. This takes me back to you standing there alone with only a couple of other senators supporting you in your filibuster. This takes me back to you wanting to use your constitutional authority, power of the purse, and all of the symbolic votes were meaningless. This, if the Republicans would have united, Obamacare would be gone today. But you became the pariah, and now John Boehner is lashing out at talk radio and the Fox News channel and commentators, and there are, Harvard Kennedy School reports written about me and others saying that we don't want you guys to govern. That's not true. But I want promises kept. You were the only one that was willing to keep a promise.
Well, Sean, you're exactly right. People are frustrated out of their minds, and it's because there's a spirit of fear and timidity among Republicans in Washington. They're afraid to stand up and lead in any respect whatsoever. And, there's a reason for that, which is they're not listening to the American people. We have Republican leadership. I talk a great deal in my new book, A Time for Truth, about what I call the Washington Cartel, which is career politicians in both parties who get in bed with lobbyists and special interests, and they grow and grow and grow government. And so many of us are frustrated because we keep winning elections, and then the people we elect don't do what they said. We were told if only we had a Republican House, things would be different. Well, we got a Republican House in 2010. Millions of us rose up, and very little change. We were told if only we have a Republican Senate. In 2014, millions of Americans rose up, retired Harry Reid, gave us historic majorities. And what has the Republican majority in both houses done? Not a darn thing. You look at what happened. As soon as we won the majority, we came back to Washington, and Republican leadership joined with Harry Reid and the Democrats to pass a $1 trillion omnibus bill filled with corporate welfare and pork. Then the Republican majority decided to fund Obamacare, to fund President Obama's unconstitutional executive amnesty, and to fund Planned Parenthood. And then Republican leadership led the charge to confirm Loretta Lynch as Attorney General. Every one of those is identical to what would have happened under Harry Reid and the Democrats. And that's why people are so fed up with the Washington Cartel, with politicians who say one thing and do another.
If we're going to talk about, everyone's discussed and it's everywhere, and the Trump phenomenon, isn't it really based on one thing? And that is that he's saying that he's pointing out the obvious, that Washington is broken. You're saying the same thing, and that he is willing to go forward and say things like what he said about how some illegal immigrants are committing crimes, et cetera, and it's kind of shocked the political establishment, right?
No, I think that's exactly right. That's why you're seeing the enthusiasm for Trump right now, that he's speaking out against Washington. And he's highlighting in particular an issue, illegal immigration, which you and I have been leading the fight on for many, many years. And it is a growing problem. It is a crisis. And the Washington Cartel, neither the Democrats nor the Republicans, want to do a thing about it. It's striking, Sean. Tonight at the debate, virtually every person who will be standing on that stage with me has been a vocal, vigorous, aggressive advocate for amnesty. I will be one of the very, very few on that stage that has never supported amnesty, that has consistently led the fight against amnesty. And as you know, amnesty is not just some small policy disagreement. Barack Obama promised to fundamentally transform this country. There's 7 billion people across the face of the globe who want to come to this country, and if they keep being allowed to come illegally and keep being given illegal amnesty, it will transform this nation. And when you have candidates like Jeb Bush and Scott Walker and Marco Rubio, who spent years and years and years advocating for amnesty, how on earth are they going to be able to stand up and disagree with Hillary Clinton? How is there going to be any contrast when their policy and Hillary Clinton's policy are both amnesty for people who are here illegally? No, we need instead a Republican that stands for rule of law and that says never, under no circumstances, will we grant amnesty. We're going to secure the borders, and we're going to do it now. We're going to stop talking about it, and we're actually going to carry through and solve the problem.
That's a powerful message you're bringing forward tonight. It's going to be very interesting to watch this unfold during the debate tonight. You also said something that I would like to hear every candidate talk more about. And we hear the right things. You're right. Heading into 2010 and 2012 and 2014, it seems that candidates know the things that we conservatives want to hear. But you mentioned something that I would like you to expand a little more deeply on, and that's the whole issue of limited government. How do we limit the constant growth of this government to the point where we have 20 trillion in debt, 120 in 20 trillion in unfunded liabilities, and a country that, by all accounting methods, shows that we're going to become Greece?
You are exactly right. What we are doing, we're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. It's fundamentally immoral. And, what these Republican majorities have demonstrated is the solution is not going to come from Congress. It is going to come from a strong conservative president in the White House. Just 2 weeks ago, as you know, we had an epic battle on the Senate floor over the Export-Import Bank, a classic example of corporate welfare and cronyism. Hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer loan guarantees going out to a handful of giant corporations. If Republicans are going to stand for anything, we ought to stop the hundreds of billions of dollars in corporate welfare they should spend for themselves. Well, as you know, I stood up and led the fight against that corporate welfare and cronyism, against leadership of my own party. And in the entire Republican Party, there was one senator, Mike Lee, who stood with me. Everyone else, the leadership excoriated us for trying to stand against this corporate welfare, for using the procedural power of the Senate to try to stop it. And the reason is...
why would the taxpayers give loan guarantees to billionaires? But that's basically what that comes down to.
That is exactly right, and the reason is simple, because they have armies of lobbyists, and they write checks to both Democrats and Republicans. In this, Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid were standing side by side and arm in arm, because the lobbyists are writing checks on both sides. And it's not two parties, it's one party, the party of Washington. And right now in Congress, you can get 60 or 70 votes in the Senate for something that grows government, because the lobbyists write checks to everybody. What we need is a strong conservative president. Sean, if I'm elected president, in January 2017, I will make abundantly clear to Republicans and Democrats in Congress, if you pass corporate welfare and cronyism that is bankrupting our kids and grandkids, I will veto it. That's what Reagan did in the 80s, was he provided strong leadership from the White House, and Congress followed because the American people stood with him. That's the only way we turn it around.
Do you think we could actually turn back this baseline budgeting model that they currently use, where government grows dramatically every year? Is there a way to do that?
I think there absolutely is. It's the presumption in Washington that government grows and grows and grows and grows. And in fact, the bizarre language of Washington, if ever anyone proposes slightly reducing the rate of growth, the media screams, that's a cut, that's a cut, that's a cut. Look, you and I live in the real world where, if you're setting your family budget, if the number is bigger this year than it was last year, it isn't a cut. And absolutely, we should look at common sense budgeting. We should look at, I know you have advocated the penny plan, which I think is a very strong policy proposal to simply decrease spending by 1 cent a year. In just a few years, the budget comes in balance. If you combine a little bit of spending restraint with tax reform and regulatory reform, repealing Obamacare, adopting a simple flat tax, the result is incredible economic growth. That's how we turn it around. And what the media wants everyone to believe is this can't be done. That today, this is the new normal. Accept stagnant growth, accept 93 million Americans not working, accept wages stagnating. That is simply not true. We've seen this before. The last time we saw this stagnation was under Jimmy Carter, And when Ronald Reagan came in and implemented the same policies that I'm campaigning on, tax reform and regulatory reform, the economy boomed. In 1984, it was growing 7.2% a year. Millions of Americans were lifted out of poverty into prosperity, into the middle class. We can do it again if we simply stand for the principles that built America in the first place.
It's so sad to me that the Republican Party has literally been so timid and so afraid that they will be blamed for a government shutdown that even the big promise in 2014 that you mentioned earlier about stopping the president's illegal executive amnesty on immigration, they wouldn't even fight on that. For this fear. This is a weapon the president uses. Well, we'll shut down the government, shut down the government. And the Republicans ended up literally funding executive amnesty, allowing it to go forward, even though that was their big promise to us.
You're exactly right. When I led the fight to try to defund executive amnesty, Republican leadership took a 2x4 to me. And I think tonight in the debate, that's going to be one of the real distinctions. You're going to see a lot of candidates that'll talk a good game on executive amnesty. I think the voters are going to ask, great, where were you guys when the fight was being fought? And most of the folks on that stage were nowhere to be found. You know, you'll see people who talk about Obamacare. I think voters are going to say, great, where were you and where have you been? What is your record in fighting to stop Obamacare? We need people that actually stand and deliver. Let's take right now Planned Parenthood. These horrific videos of Planned Parenthood senior officials laughing, sipping Chardonnay, and selling the body parts of unborn children. They're horrifying. I encourage every American to watch them, even if you happen to be pro-choice. If you support abortion, watch these videos anyway, if you can stomach them. And just ask, are these my values? They're horrifying. And I'll tell you this, Sean, if I'm elected president of the United States, the U.S. Department of Justice will investigate and will prosecute any violations of Planned Parenthood that are captured on that video and that they're carrying out in direct violation of federal criminal law.
Last quick question. We only have 30 seconds. Hillary Clinton is being investigated by the FBI. As you see, the classified emails were on her server. Do you believe laws were broken?
It certainly appears that they were. There needs to be a serious investigation. And I'll say this, the wheels are coming off the Hillary Clinton campaign, which means for Republicans, this is our opportunity to nominate a strong conservative. We've had 225,000 people come to tedcruz.org, contribute, support the campaign. If we put a strong conservative in the White House, that's how we'll turn this country around.
Senator, really look forward to seeing you tonight. I know you'll join us on this late edition of Hannity after the debate. We look forward to seeing you, and best of luck to you tonight, Senator. We'll be watching closely.
Thank you, Sean. I'll see you soon.